Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something huge, maybe the biggest question there is. Why are you here? What's your individual purpose? And our main source today is from a series Greg Elkan wrote called A Life of Purpose. So, our job here is to unpack Greg Elkan's thinking on this. How does he see finding purpose? What's his framework? He draws some really fascinating contrasts and talks about real benefits. Okay, let's get into it. He starts right at the heart of it. Why am I here? He says, look, this isn't new. People have asked this forever. But he argues that modern thinking, especially secular views, evolution, and he even mentions the whole pro-choice, pro-life debate. He thinks these things have kind of pushed aside the idea that maybe you specifically have a purpose. And he uses that scene from The Matrix, Neo asks why he's there, and the architect gives that really cold answer. Elkan quotes, "Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation, the eventuality of an anomaly."
Pretty stark, right?
Oh, absolutely stark.
Yeah.
Greg calls it a belief assessment. He basically says this is what happens when you see humans as, just the result of two gametes fusing together. Gametes being the sperm and egg, of course. If it's just random biology, Elkan argues, where's the inherent meaning? It sort of clashes with that deep need we all have to feel like our lives count for something. Right, that need for significance. But then Elkan pivots hard. Despite that bleak view, he insists, nevertheless, you are here for a reason. And not just a general reason for humankind, but a specific purpose for you, individually designed. And he uses this biological statistic to make his point, which is honestly kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. He says you weren't just 1 in a million, you were literally 1 in 200 million. That's the typical number of sperm cells in the running, so to speak. So Elkan's takeaway from those incredible odds is, it would be presumptuous, he says, to think God just let that specific union happen without a purpose behind it for you.
It's a powerful reframe, isn't it? Taking biology and seeing divine intention.
Yeah.
And Elkan goes further. He suggests God didn't just, assign your purpose at birth. He says God had you in his mind from all eternity past. Like when the universe was being planned, Greg suggests your arrival was factored in and you were given a role, which really makes you think about chance versus destiny, doesn't it?
Totally reshapes it. And Elkan throws down a challenge here. He says, basically, it's your call. Are you going to live life as though you have no consequence, or will you rise up in faith to fulfill what God had in mind? He even quotes Psalm 139 here, the CEV version. You are the one who put me together inside my mother's body, and I praise you because of the wonderful way you created me. It's about agency within that divine plan. Okay, so he's established this idea of individual, God-given purpose, but then comes the tricky part. How does that fit with free will? He brings in Jeremiah 29:11. I know the thoughts that I think toward you, which sounds comforting, but also maybe a bit deterministic. But Greg argues, no, God has a purpose, sure, but that purpose isn't cast in stone. Your life isn't like pre-programmed or fated. He's really clear on that. Free will is real. It's part of the design.
Yeah, this is a key distinction he works hard to make clear. He separates what he calls biblical Christianity from two other big ideas. First, there's atheistic determinism. That's the view where free will is just an illusion, right? Everything you do is just atoms bouncing around, neurons firing based on physics, all set in motion at the Big Bang, no real choice. Then you've got religious fatalism. This view says, yes, there's a God, but he's so in control that everything happens exactly as he dictates. No room for human will to change anything. It's all prescripted.
Right, like cosmic puppets. But Elkan says the Bible offers something more balanced. He argues God is sovereign, all-powerful, yes, but he chose to create us with real free will. He points to Genesis, the choice given right at the start. It's a relationship, not a program.
And here's a really interesting nuance Craig brings in. He talks about God's generic will for the earth, like a big picture plan for creation. Elkan says that overarching purpose, it's inviolable. It will happen no matter what individuals choose. He cites Isaiah and Ephesians on this, and he uses Mary as this incredible example. He asks, okay, Mary was chosen, but what if she'd said no? Would God's whole plan for salvation have just collapsed? And Greg's answer is a definite no. He argues God's omniscience, his knowing everything, and his power mean the plan can accommodate human choices, even rebellion. If Mary had refused, Elkan suggests there'd always be another virgin from the house of David who would fulfill that role. The plan adapts. He also mentions Elijah feeling alone, but God saying, nope, I've still got 7,000 others, and then Elisha takes over. Someone else steps up if one person falters. God's main goal still gets done.
That really clarifies Elkan's view, doesn't it? He sums it up by saying, destiny, as he frames it, is God's love wanting to work through you. He set up a perfect path. But, and this is crucial, it will come to pass in your life, but only if you say so. Your will is the key. It's an active partnership. So if living this God-directed life is the path to fulfillment, why aren't more people jumping at it? Elkan tackles this common fear. People worry it'll be, dull and ungratifying, like giving up your own dreams. But Elkan says that's a total misunderstanding. He quotes Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. Suggesting alignment actually makes life better, not worse.
Exactly. And then Greg gets really specific about the advantages. First, the big one. God's plan, he says, ends in heaven. That's the ultimate payoff. But there are benefits now, too, like security and safety. This is compelling. Elkan argues if your life is tied into God's bigger, unstoppable plan, then your success, your safety, it becomes God's business. Yeah. Think of Moses surviving against all odds, or the two Josephs, the one sold to slavery, the other protecting Jesus. Elkan sees divine protection there because they had a purpose to fulfill.
Okay, so safety is one. What else?
Then there's provision. Greg has this great line, there'll always be provision for the vision. Meaning, if you're on the path, what you need will show up. He points to Saul finding a kingdom while looking for donkeys, David facing Goliath. Even Israel as a nation, he argues, had an edge because the Messiah was coming through them. Their purpose brought provision.
Right, the resources followed the purpose.
Yep. And finally, connection and direction, because God's orchestrating, Elkan says. He arranges all the right persons and circumstances to come your way. He calls them perfect coincidences, like Joseph just happening to meet the man who directs him to his brothers, or Saul bumping into Samuel, or Eliezer finding Rebekah, Pharaoh's daughter finding Moses. Not random, Elkan argues, but God lining things up.
Wow, it's quite a picture he paints. And he ties it off, saying that for someone living in purpose, even their problems and enemies work to advance God's will. He uses Proverbs and Romans 8:28 again there. The idea that even bad stuff gets used for good in that framework, that's profound.
It is. So, boiling it down for you, the listener, Greg's saying the ultimate advantage is this. You get to use God's omnipotence, his power to change anything, and his omniscience, his perfect knowledge of everything for your benefit. It's like having the ultimate guide and provider actively working things out for you.
That does sound incredibly appealing. But there's always a but, isn't there? Elkan makes it clear this perfect destiny doesn't come easy. It takes something from you, requires essential qualities. He quotes Psalm 40. Lo, I come. I delight to do your will, O my God. It implies active willingness.
Exactly. And he breaks down these qualities. First, and maybe most central, is trust that God knows what's best for you in your future. Which means, practically, you can't walk with God if you want to see around the corners all the time. You have to trust the guide.
Trusting even when you can't see the next step. Okay.
Then, obedience. He uses a great analogy here, like a GPS. If you want to get his glorious destination, you must be willing to obey his every instruction. Make a wrong turn. He says God reroutes you back to his will, though you'd pay the price in a delayed destiny. It brings up Moses and Saul again here, how the disobedience led to delays and consequences.
Right, the GPS rerouting, but maybe taking the long way round. Makes sense.
Next, patience. Elkan is blunt. Attempting to manipulate your destiny because of passing time will only result in self-harm. Again, he points to Moses and Saul trying to force things and the negative results. Trusting God's timing is key.
So, faith, obedience, patience. What's the last one?
Prayer. This is crucial for Elkan because destiny is a partnership, not a pre-programmed fate. Prayer is how you stay connected, how you keep contact with the writer of the blueprint to confirm if you're on track. It's the ongoing conversation. And he holds up Jesus' life as the perfect example, constant communication, aligning his will with God's, even when it was incredibly hard.
That really covers all the bases, doesn't it? From the huge why am I here question to the free will debate, the benefits, and then the actual how-to with faith, obedience, patience, prayer. Greg Elkan provides a very thorough picture. So to recap, we've walked through Greg Elkan's A Life of Purpose. We looked at how he defines purpose against other views, how he handles free will versus God's plan, the benefits he sees, and what he says is required from us.
And it leaves you with a really potent thought, building on Elkan's ideas. If God did factor you in from eternity, giving you a unique role, and if your choice activates that destiny, then maybe, just maybe, starting to understand your own specific gifts, your passions, what makes you tick. Maybe that's the very first step towards figuring out what that unique personal purpose Elkan talks about actually is for you. Gives you something to chew on, right?
It certainly does. A lot to think about there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Greg Elkan's perspective. We hope it sparked some thoughts for your own journey of finding meaning. And hey, if this resonated, maybe check out more of Greg Elkan's work. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
This was an audio recording of Elkan's Word for Today. The WhatsApp Devotional by Greg Elkan. For more information and other edifying resources, visit us at www.gregelkan.com. That's GREGELKAN.com. You can send your comments or questions by WhatsApp to 234-813-664-2912. God bless you.